25 years and my life is still trying to get up that great big hill of hope for a destination. I realized quickly when I knew I should that the world was made up of this brotherhood of man, for whatever that means. And I tried, oh my God, do I try? I try all the time in this institution, and I pray, oh my God, do I pray? I pray every single day for revolution into a closer times when I'm lying in bed just to get it all out what's in my head. And I am feeling a little cooler into a wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and I get real high and I scream from the top of my lungs, what's going on? And I say, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. I said, hey, oh, what's going on? And I said, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. I said, hey, oh, what's going on? And I said, ooh, ooh, ooh. 25 years and my life is still trying to get up that great big hill of hope for a destination. I realized quickly when I knew I should that the world was made up of this brotherhood of man, for whatever that means. And I tried, oh my God, do I try? I try all the time in this institution, and I pray, oh my God, do I pray? I pray every single day for revolution into a closer times when I'm lying in bed just to get it all out what's in my head. And I am feeling a little cooler into a wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and I get real high and I scream from the top of my lungs, what's going on? And I say, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. I said, hey, oh, what's going on? And I said, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. I said, hey,
Well, good evening and welcome to another episode of Canada, a user's guide and owner's manual. Looks like we had a few little audio glitches there, but I think the technical guys have gotten that all worked out. And thanks for joining us. My name is Randy Hillier. Many of you will know I've been opposing government for about 25 years now. First as a activist, and then as an elected member of the legislature. I was also the first elected representative in Canada to oppose the insanity of the COVID mandates and lockdowns and state of emergency. And during my 25 years, come to realize that most people know that the machine is broken. A lot of people, Canadians, aren't interested in politics, aren't interested in fixing it. This show isn't for them. Another group of people, many Canadian voters, think that they're victims and they're unable to do anything about it. But a great many Canadians know the machine is broken, know that it needs to be fixed, but they lack the understanding or the knowledge or the vocabulary on how to fix it, how to participate in it, and how to fix this broken down machine we call politics and government. This show is meant for you, the people who want to be involved, want to be engaged, and want to fix this broken down machine. Tonight we're doing something a little bit different as well. After the live stream show on all the platforms, we'll be going directly into a Twitter space as well on the No More Lockdowns Twitter account. So join us there as well, and stay tuned for episode 3, how our political parties hijack the political process and create the illusion of choice. Stay tuned. Welcome to Canada, a user's guide and owner's manual. Many people want to fix this broken down machine called government. So join with me every week as we create an owner's manual to help people understand what these parts are, how they're supposed to fit together, and how to troubleshoot, maintain, and fix this broken down machine. Welcome to another edition of Canada, a user's guide and owner's manual. In this week's episode, we're going to examine how our established political parties have hijacked our system and create the illusion of choice on election day for Canadian voters. And they do this by rigging the nomination process. I'll share with you some of my personal experiences and observations on how the local nominations are rigged, but also how the leadership races are rigged to make sure that the choices you're given on election day, those nominees will have loyalty and allegiance to the political party, not to you, the voter. So join with me as we not only explore this subject, but also how we can fix and repair this broken aspect of our democracy. Well, thank you once again. We're going to have a few guests join with me at Scuttlebutt Lodge and on this week's episode. We've got Lee Stewie, that great new freedom fighter from the newer generation of Canadian freedom fighters, join us, as well as my Mackenzie friend, or as the courts know him, Sean McRae, longtime farmer and friend from Glengarry County as well. And I see everybody is looking very, very heritage oriented tonight as well. But with the lodge in the background, the red ensign, and if that looks like a crown patent from many, many years ago, Mr. McRae.
Yeah, about 220 or so.
Right on.
1803.
Well, that'll we'll have to get into those one day as well, but not for tonight. So listen, I've made the analogy that, and I think most people would agree with this. Every election, we come up with choices of different lemons. The political parties always seem to offer up a lemon for everyone to choose from, whether it's the red party, the green party, the orange party, or the blue party. And as Canadians who go out and buy a car, and turns out to be a lemon, they quickly get rid of it and get a new model, different make. They don't go back and get the same old lemon. But when it comes to voting, we find out that all the political dealerships only have lemons on the showroom floor for Canadians. So let's see if we can find some ways tonight to help people understand and find ways that they don't always have to choose a lemon every 4 years.
I think before we jump into that, though, Randy, we're going to do a bit of housekeeping. Just for anyone who haven't watched in the previous weeks, the last portion of the stream is going to be going to answering your questions submitted to Randy's website at randyhillier.com/ask-a-question. But if you didn't get the chance prior to the stream, you can send in a super chat and we'll address those at the end of the stream. And you can also donate to Randy's website at nomorolockdowns/donate. If you just want to help Mr. Hillier and his treacherous legal fees that he has currently. And also, you have an event with Maxime Bernier, I believe, on November 9th in Burlington. That can be found on the PPC's website. And you already mentioned the Twitter space after this stream. You can find the links there on Randy's Twitter.
Thank you, Lee. And
9:30, I think it starts.
And yes, I jumped the gun, and I should have let you go first on that, Lee.
That's okay. We can jump right in now. That's okay.
Right on. Well, why don't we fire away about how to get rid of lemons in our political system?
Yeah. So why would a party want to ensure a specific candidate gets elected?
Yeah. So this is what I discovered early on in my career. Well, as I was first seeking the nomination, the political parties really don't want to have independent-minded people in their caucus. The priorities of a political party is unity in message, unity in appearance, and having nobody rocking the boat. So they're looking for candidates who fit that, who will fit that, those priorities. People who are obedient, people who are not very curious, maybe people that don't have a lot of knowledge on the subjects as well. Because if you have those characteristics, then it's going to be much easier for the party to manipulate those caucus members if they have those attributes of obedience and not that. We don't get too many mavericks in
Would
our.
the term barking seals be inappropriate, Randy?
No, that's barking seals, parrots. We've all those terms are often used, and of course it's not just everybody immediately turns into a barking seal or a puppet. The political parties actually want to find those people, and when the nomination process comes up, oftentimes the party will go out and invite specific people to be a candidate, and they're going to look for people who have those attributes that I just explained, but also people who will have some name recognition. That's an important quality for them as well. And people who come from generally from some sort of organization. It could be the Masons, could be the Rotary Club. People who have a network, could be the United Way. So people that have a network, people that have some name recognition, and then, but really the qualities that they're looking for is, are you going to be an easy person to deal with? Are you going to obey all the edicts? And will you uh, be beholden to the party establishment? And actually, the very term representative becomes moot under those conditions. You're no longer a representative. Well, actually, I guess what I would say is you are now representing the party to your constituents rather than representing your constituents to the parliament.
They really dropped the ball when they chose you, didn't they?
Well, they really didn't want. They did. Yeah, they did everything possible to not have me a candidate. When I announced I was going to be the candidate or going to seek the nomination, and of course at that time I had just left the Landowners Association, and we were a very powerful and substantive organization throughout rural Ontario, and their preferred candidate for the riding was the son of the local riding president, who had also been a long-time staffer to the former member, Norm Sterling, and he fit all those attributes. He ticked off all the boxes that the party wanted, and and then I came along, and it was an interesting. This is my first experience with the inducements, the bribery, the coercive element of the political parties. One of the senior members of the Progressive Conservative Party at the time was a fellow named Frank Cleese, who I knew. He was had run for the leadership previously, and he had been a minister in the Eves and Harris government. And he called me up one night and he said, Randy, because I knew who he was and we knew each other. He says, Randy, he says, we really like you. The party really likes you. We think you're a fine, fine fella. But we have other ideas for you. And we really would rather you not run for the nomination in Lanark-Frontenac. And I said, well, Frank, thanks. But I'm going to run and seek the nomination. And Frank says, well, if you choose not to, the party has many, many corporate partners, and they are willing to provide you with a very nice income, and we can find employment for you that is all inside. There's no heavy lifting, and we'll take care of you if you choose not to seek the nomination. And I said to Frank, I said, Frank, if I was doing this just for a job, I'd go back and be an electrician or something. But I had, this was not just about a job. And of course, these sorts of stories are seldom heard by the public. There's only one that comes to mind recently. Last year, high-profile U.S. Republican candidate Carrie Lake was revealed that they did with her. And I don't know if we've got a little clip, but it was amazing. The Republicans she got, I was new to this. I didn't record Frank's conversation. But Kerry Lake recorded the conversation. We should hear what goes on some of these phone calls. Do we have the video for that? Maybe not. But again, she was offered up a substantial amount of money not to seek the Senate nomination for the Republican Party. And there was another one in my time in the Ontario legislature was a member, a candidate for the Ontario Liberal Party, Andrew Olivier, was a very outspoken advocate for the disabled, I believe, and he got it on tape as well when the Ontario Liberal Party were offering him money not to be a candidate. So whenever an outspoken individual comes along, the parties will find some means or mechanism to usually disqualify him. With me, it was just a case where the landowners organization was so strong and powerful in rural Ontario, they knew if they disqualified me, and that's what they generally do with people, is they just disqualify them. With me, there would have been ramifications. So, but I think
we've got the Kerry clip now. Yeah.
We want to pivot, Vaughn, to this new audio that NBC just obtained of the Arizona GOP chair trying to convince Arizona Republican Kerry Lake not to run in this year's U.S. Senate race. Let's take a listen.
There are very powerful people that want to keep you out.
I know they do.
But they're willing to put their money where their mouth is in a big way. So, this conversation we never had. Is there a number at which
I can be bought?
not be bought?
That's what it's about.
You can take a pause for a couple of years.
No.
Then go right back to what you're doing.
No.
All right, Vaughn, she ran for governor, lost. What more do we know about?
Yeah. Well, there, as she said, or as was the chair for the Republican Party said, we have wealthy partners who are willing to do the business with the party. And this is just, we know that these entanglements between political parties and their wealthy corporate partners are strong and deep.
And if, like you, Randy, a potential candidate is successful in obtaining the nomination and gets elected, but has that honesty of character, and what happens to them after that? We see the odd time someone resigns from the party and becomes an independent. They retain their seat in the legislature, but legislative assembly, but they're out of the party or pushed out the door, essentially, or they maybe resign on principle or what have you.
So that's why
those are the ones that we really hear good stuff from. Whenever COVID stuff is going on, like I remember, I think it was late in the summer of 2021, there was the Doug Ford Conservatives were going to push through another extension to the lockdowns and the emergencies situation, and they tried to pull it off on a Friday afternoon, and there were two independents in the House that said, we need this to be a recorded vote. So they put it off for a week to the next Friday, and the vote was recorded. So those of us who were paying attention were able to maybe tune up our MPP a little bit because they either didn't show up that day or they abstained or voted one way or the other. But there was quite a bit of cowardice involved at that time.
Yeah.
But it was those independents that really forced that vote.
Yeah, I remember that well. But that's again, you know, parties don't like kicking out caucus members. They will do it. There's no question. But but that's bad optics. It goes against what they're looking for. They want to always put the picture in front of the public that they're united. They're all one. So that's why they want to prevent those things from happening as much as possible, and make sure the right lemon is chosen, uh, uh, so that doesn't happen. But obviously, uh, you know, it does happen. You know, there's been many examples like that with Jody Wilson-Raybould, Jane Philpott. There are people who stand on principle and conviction afterwards, and even though they may have been selected for those attributes, they find some conviction somewhere along the line, and well, they find themselves out. But
So
the
how
party
do
has many mechanisms. Go ahead, Lee.
how do political parties ensure that a candidate's going to toe the line?
Well, one of the often unseen elements of the nomination process as well is whenever somebody applies to be a candidate with a major political party, there is a real thorough screening of that individual's background. Nowadays, of course, that would include all their social media posts, but it's also significant screening of all their financial activities, any matters in the courts, any family matters. They root through the closet of each candidate very significantly, and that is utilized. They will tell the candidate, well, we need to know everything about you, because that's what the other team is going to do. They're going to root through and know everything about you. So you better tell us everything there is to know about you so we can protect you. But usually, and most often, the information that they get about individual candidates is then used to keep that person in line. The party will know if you did some things that you ought not to have done years previously, or things that you've done that you might not want to have others know about. The party has that information, and they will use it. They will leak that information to the press, and I saw that many times. And even even things that the party finds out about a candidate ongoing, you'll see many times people who leave politics unexpectedly is because they got word that the party was going to release some of the dirt that they have on that individual, and it's better for and that individual would often want to keep that hush hush. So that happens. That's another form of coercion that the party uses on its members.
So you spoke a bit about your own experience with the nomination or election interference. What are some tactics used to rig a leadership election?
Yeah, well, Sean and I were at the first time we saw that was the John Tory leadership race. not his leadership race, his leadership review. And that was in 2008 in London, Ontario. And the party had a mandatory leadership review that, because Tory had lost the 2007 election, a great many Conservative members were not happy with John Tory. It was very likely he was going to lose that review. About 1,000 delegates had been selected for that convention from across the province. And for those who don't know how this works, each riding association selects delegates to go to a convention. They have to pay their delegate fees and their hotel rooms and various not. And there was 1,000 delegates for the John Tory leadership review.
Me too, Dave.
That's what originally there was 1,000, but and the party did everything possible. We had landowners on the bus going down to the leadership convention, and they were doing everything possible to disqualify our delegates because they knew the landowners were not going to be supportive of John Tory. And John Tory had pulled out all the stops in the leadership in the party to get our delegates excluded. They weren't successful, but on the next day, we had like 8 or 10 coaches of delegates arrive the next day. And
Toronto.
From Toronto and various places. And magically 400 new delegates arrived. The cutoff date for delegates was like a month earlier. And we knew this happened because after the vote, we all walked into the banquet hall to have dinner, and the banquet hall was set up for the 1,000 delegates that had bought and paid their fees. Only to find out that there was 400 extra people in the banquet hall, and 400 of us couldn't get dinner that day, and were shuffled off to basement meeting rooms and given a box lunch because all of John Tory's bussed-in delegates, and he just barely squeaked through on that one. So they'll every party will break every rule if it's in their interest. We saw this, of course, in spades with the Democratic Party in the United States just a couple of weeks ago. They broke every rule that they had about having a primary, but they decided that Sleepy Joe wasn't going to win them the race this time. So they broke every rule and just installed
Kamala Harris.
Kamala. But we've seen this throughout Canadian politics, again in all parties. The Doug Ford and Christine Elliott fiasco, where in 2018 the party had 10,000 votes that they couldn't attribute to where they should be applied. And so 10,000 people who voted, those votes weren't counted. Christine Elliott protested the results. And after a day of protesting, she knew that she wasn't going to win. The party had decided that Doug Ford was a better candidate. And after some secret, quiet negotiations, Christine Elliott dropped her protests and was named deputy leader of the party, and also made the deal to become health minister. So another just recent example was just the last Conservative leadership race, where three people who put in their names to become to be candidates in the leadership race Joseph Borgo was one. Grant Abraham, I believe, was another one. They both had ponied up the $300,000 entrance fee, but the party disqualified them without giving any cause or justification for it. They just said, well, these guys we don't want, even though they met all the criteria and came up with all the money. And people might remember that Joseph Borgo was a very wealthy industrialist in Saskatchewan, was a very big promoter of the Freedom Convoy. And obviously, the Conservative Party didn't want anybody who was a strong promoter of those events in Ottawa to be a potential leader of the party. You know, he was anti-jab mandates and anti-lockdowns, and they couldn't have him as a potential leader. So,
I think another great example is Faith Goldie in 2019 running for mayor of Toronto against John Tory, actually, where she was sabotaged from the beginning based on what her policies were. Bell Media refusing to run her mayoral ads. She was kept from debating, where she crashed a debate. Delivering a petition that had 5,000 signatures on it of people who wanted to hear her debate and take part, and then later on had an audit launched against her by the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, where they had to go through all of her financial records, claiming that she was taking donors from outside of Canada, and it resulted in journalists then doxing her supporters. And I think, I don't know if there's video, but there's video of actually her crashing this debate with the 5,000 signatures. And I told her, even though she lost this election, she came in third, by the way. So imagine if they had, let her speak in this debate, how well she would have done. But, I told her that, even though you didn't win this election, you sure did expose all the corruption that goes on within politics and running for mayor. So yeah, let's play this clip here.
Yep.
Pay attention to what they say at the end.
I'm sorry, we can't have any disruption. I'm sorry. Can we take care of this, please? Thank you. That's enough. Can we?
5,000 signatures.
Thank you. Can we have her removed? Thank you. I'm so sorry. We cannot allow you to disrupt this arts debate. Thank you. We're all going to take 1 second, and then we're going to move anybody who is disrupting this debate out of the theater. Okay, this is very important. Volunteers have worked very, very hard to get this debate off the ground. It's the first debate for our city. And if you care about the city, you will allow our candidates to actually talk.
If you care about this city, you will allow our delegates to talk as they're escorting her off stage. It's just, and Maxime Bernier was subject to this as well, where he wasn't allowed to debate. But yeah, Faith Goldie comes to mind when I heard rigging elections. I was like, yep, I have the perfect example for this.
Well, I think there's a couple of aspects of that. Like, that was not a political party rigging. Obviously, that was a Toronto mayoralty campaign. There was at least six people vying for that position. The corporate system, the political system saw that 5 of them were acceptable candidates that were going to fit that mold of being obedient, compliant. They were not going to be mavericks, but there was one that didn't fit that mold, and her name was Faith Goldie. So now it wasn't just the political parties rigging the process, but the corporate entities like Bell Media not allowing her to have adverts. The all candidates debates excluding her from any debates to silence and prevent her. Well, as Elon would say, limit the reach of those candidates. So, but I, Sean, you were an independent candidate as well. This is a normal process that the media and the other players oftentimes will not allow independent or disruptive, potentially disrupting or maverick candidates to have a voice.
Right. Or someone who actually knows the issues and wants to debate them, and not from the perspective of the other socialists at the front. There was something you may have mentioned perhaps last night. Sneaky Patty Brown, did he have a little trick up his sleeve at some point?
Who's that now again?
Patrick Brown.
Yeah. He was very prolific. Yeah. But let's just finish off with Faith there. I think she was she was very knowledgeable. So that's an X against her. She wasn't compliant or obedient, so there's a couple more X's against her. And once again, my old friend John Tory was involved in that. But there's Patrick Brown's leadership was another leadership just completely fraught with rigging in that one. It came out during that campaign that parties have another mechanism that they rig the system with, and that's called bulk memberships. So where most candidates are going around door to door or calling on their friends to sell a membership, the party does allow people, campaigns to pay and buy memberships without any names to them in advance, and then provide the names afterwards to the party. So this is this is just ripe for all kinds of skullduggery on this one. And now I'll have to be careful what I say here, but during that Patrick Brown leadership, the 407 database was hacked, and 60,000 names and addresses and phone numbers and whatnot were hacked from the 407 ETR database, coincidentally during the leadership campaign. And I remember talking to the fellas at the PC party headquarters, and they would be saying that Brown's campaign would be bringing in bags full of cash, like big bags of cash, to pre-purchase memberships, and then and we saw the outcome of those. That election was just craziness. For typically the Ontario PC party would never have more than 100,000 members, but apparently Patrick Brown sold 300,000 memberships in that campaign. And in the old days, back before computers and things like that, there had been leadership candidates who got caught doing pre-purchase of memberships and then going to the graveyard and getting names off the tombstones. Tom Long got caught doing that back in the late 1990s or 2000. It's much more sophisticated now. And And I'll just add this one other element in the Brown campaign. One of the I went to a number of his fundraisers because as caucus, you go out and you that's what you're expected to do. And most of his fundraisers many of them were held by the owners of some of the largest casino licenses in Ontario, who also, casinos are known to have some cash around, bags of cash around, um, and of course, casino licenses are absolutely priceless. So you can see that there might be some connection between leadership contestants and casinos and bulk membership purchases and potentially new casino licenses down the road. But yeah, there's, I have not.
The circle.
Well, I would say that as far as I know, the only leadership race that I saw that in all my time was that I think was fair was the leadership race that I was in 2009. But well, I know it didn't look to be hijacked, but I was still pretty new into politics at that time, so I might not have seen everything that I would see later on.
So how is the United States election process different than ours when it comes to a nomination process? I know you kind of touched on the US a little bit, but yeah, how is the nomination selection different?
Yeah, so here our nomination races are controlled. They're held, they're implemented, they're determined by the political party. So each political party holds their own races, and they can make their own rules. Where in the states, the state electoral system conducts the primary. So in the states, they use a term an open primary. So this is how Donald Trump became a candidate, how Donald Trump became president. We could never have a Donald Trump, in our present system. So because obviously he's a bit of a maverick, and obviously he isn't very obedient. So the political parties would find a way to disqualify him. But in the United States, that didn't happen. They couldn't disqualify him. They thought they could railroad him and make sure that the playing field wasn't level, but still that wasn't enough. Here, the political party would just disqualify the individual, but in the American states, the state does the primary rather than the political party. So it might be a good thought for Canadians to think that we should have open primaries here in Canada as well.
So we're coming up close to the last half hour here of the stream. So if you haven't sent in a super chat to ask a question, I recommend doing so now. And if you're watching this back on the replay, please visit nomorelelockdowns.ca/donate if you want to help Randy out with his legal fees. So do Canadians really have a choice when a choice of change when it comes to voting?
Well, this is really the crux of the matter, Lee and Sean, is Canadians have been unfairly and falsely convinced that they have to vote for a team that is only offering up lemons. Most people don't realize that if you go and look at the ballot in your next general election, there will probably be 7, 8, 9, 10 different names on that ballot. But everybody will be only thinking of probably 3, maybe 4. And they don't even consider the other 5 or 6 names on the ballot. And so the same sort of process is happening, but now the voters are disqualifying potential candidates themselves. And they're just saying that they're not even worth looking at or considering. And if we go back and look at this objectively, I would say for those people who want to be involved and want to be engaged and want to fix the system, you have to start actually looking at the other alternatives that are there for you. And you can, it's, in politics, as we see, as we heard throughout tonight, in every episode, money is a big influencer in politics, and most people don't have the millions of dollars or billions of dollars, and they don't own casinos to influence the system. But we do have our own voices. We have our own efforts, and I would say, people who are looking at the next upcoming general election, they should go on the Wikipedia page for their riding and see who ran last time, right? Who was an independent? Who was from a smaller party, the PPC party or the Libertarian Party? And they could give those people a call up and say, I want to talk to you. I want to find out if you're a good candidate or not. And if I think you are a good candidate, I'd like to help you out. And then maybe I'll ask my friends to help you out as well. We can, individuals can equalize this this influence of money if they put a little bit of time and a little bit of effort into it. And again, I'll share a personal story with everybody on listening in. When I first got involved in politics, was because there was what was called the Reform Party, and it was a small, party. It had been trying and didn't get any seats beyond Manitoba, but I thought the candidate who was running in my riding and the Reform Party looked like a good quality option and alternative, even though nobody thought they would ever win, right? Back 25 years ago. And so I met with the candidate, thought he was a good person, and I hosted events in my house with neighbors to come and meet the candidate. And then I encouraged other people to do the same thing. Well, in Ontario, the Reform Party, it changed into the Alliance, but in my riding was the first time we had a Reform Alliance member elected in Ontario. And it was a strong conservative riding. Everybody thought it would always be conservative. Nobody ever thought that it would be anything but conservative. And sure enough, the Reform Alliance candidate won. And it's just by finding out who's a potential candidate early on, preferably, and helping those candidates out, getting to be known, getting people to know what the party stands for, what the candidate, if the candidate is a competent and capable individual. And I can say that I was part of that, building up a volunteer base to help out that candidate. So it does happen, but so that's why I said at the beginning of this show, if you think that you're a victim and there's the problem is too big and there's nothing you can do, well, you're going to be voting for and sucking on lemons for the rest of your voting career, right?
Hmm.
It doesn't take much to get rid of the lemons if you put a little bit of effort into it. Give those alternative candidates a good look over. You might be really surprised that there's some nuggets in there, maybe even some gems that would do so much better um, for you than um, just getting a red lemon instead of a blue lemon this time around.
Well, another good point is one of the nuggets in there, Randy, is that the old saying that, and maybe it's not so old, I don't know, heard it a few times in recent years. Democracy and the responsibility of the citizen, the voting citizen, is not just to show up and tick a ballot every 4 years. There's, as you said, there's work to do in the between times to direct your support, money, time, and effort, and as you did, talk to people, host an event. I know when we had a PPC party candidate here, I bought the biggest sign I could get, and I've got an old bucket truck, and my friend and employee at the time, we set up that truck right out by 401 highway at the end of my lane, and it sat there for a couple of months with I forget her first name. Her last name was Trim, I believe, and it was at least a 4x8. I don't know, and it was way up high in the air. And if you drove by on Highway 2 or 401 or South Service Road, you could see it for miles around. So every little bit to help out those worthy candidates has to be done. And everybody drives by and says, that McRae's crazy, but too bad.
Yeah, and I think, but people need to realize that you don't, this takes a bit of a time. Like I forget when the Reform Party started, but I think it was around, it must have been around 1990, and it took 10 years before we got a candidate elected in Ontario. So, like these are. But people should realize, if I go back to that car analogy, most car buyers in Canada will spend much more time evaluating and thinking about and analyzing what new car or truck they're going to buy than what the amount of time that they give to who they're going to vote for. And I'll put it in this perspective. Government is going to take, by the time you count it all up, the government is going to take over 50% of your income, either between income tax, sales taxes, property taxes, excise taxes. Over 50% of all your money is going to be going to government. Some people a lot more. Surely that must be worth spending a little bit of time. Or, if you're not willing to put the time in, well, don't be surprised if that 50% is going to be 60%, and then it's going to be 70%, because that's the path that we've been on for quite some time. And people need to realize that there is a financial incentive here for them to spend maybe a half hour or an hour to take a look at who the candidates are, and maybe spend a little bit of time um, inviting your friends and neighbors over to your house to meet the local candidate. And
Yeah.
um, and well, you also know this, uh, Sean. You guys were very successful in removing many of the municipal councillors down your way years ago, who were not, uh, in getting a new slate of, or quite a number of new councillors elected there. Just
True.
with a
Although, as a caveat, I'm not sure we ended up improving things a great deal, but at
well,
least
that
there was a change.
uh,
You said you spoke of the Reform Party, and I can't remember all the specifics, but I think the Progressive Conservatives' performance had become so abysmal, coinciding with the rise of the Reform, particularly out west, that I think they were down 2 seats. So
Yeah.
it was sort of an act of desperation, I believe, with the old residues of the old socialist, uh, quote unquote, conservative party, that um,
yeah.
they had no choice but to uh, open up the door to um, some libertarians and right of center voters and thinkers and candidates.
That is true, and it's an important thing for people to realize. Back in that one, the Conservative Party, after 2 terms of Mulroney, Kim Campbell became uh, the obedient, compliant, uh, not too intellectually curious leader of the Progressive Conservative Party, and the party went down to 2 seats, um, um, and that gave rise. I think reform was started just before that, because of the West has never felt really to be uh, an equal partner in Confederation.
No,
Uh, so that opened the door. But and within 10 years, they started vying for power. Unfortunately, they became the dysfunctional, and merged with the Conservative Party, and lost all of their principles that they
yes,
once stood for: the equal and elected Senate, the referendums, the reform, recall bills, all that went by the wayside. But Lee, you said, what else can we do about this? And and I'm just thinking back to um, our last episode, and where the rebellions of 1837 were triggered because of the corrupt electoral system, and uh,
So you're
and
saying we need a rebellion?
well, no, I think there's
any
there's
form.
two there's going to be two paths ahead of us. Um, One, we either get off our couches and become involved and engaged in the electoral system, um, or history shows that um, will rise to rebellion. That's reform or rebellion. That's how the history has shown, and I think, yeah, uh, we're going to see tomorrow. We have a significant ballot day in the states, and we're going to see. Will the system, will the machine allow a disruptor uh, named Trump? Will they allow that maverick and that disruptor uh, uh, to take the presidency? Will allow him to win the presidency. Uh,
I haven't read this book in probably 15 years. I don't know if it's going to show up there, but it's Ron Paul's The Revolution. It's not a very long read, but it's another word that could be used to describe changing things,
Yeah.
because the citizenry ultimately are supposed to be the boss.
Yeah.
They just have to get interested and active and fed up to a great degree with, um, in the Americans' case, unending wars and the big pharma, the military complex, the um, all of the levers being pulled by um, big corporations or corrupt politicians that are not representing the people or acting in their best interests. Yeah, ultimately. So
Yeah. Well, and revolution's a good word, because revolution doesn't just have that connotation of military. Yeah.
right.
We use the term cultural revolution. Revolutions can come in many different aspects, and um, so yeah, a cultural electoral revolution, where Canadians decide to get engaged, to be involved, and not just select the corporate um, lemon, and
Or not
maybe,
even show up to vote.
or yeah. Well, here's another thing. Um, I was just taking a look at, um, uh, for whatever reason, um, um, in your riding last election, Sean, I think it was yours, um,
Federally or provincially?
uh, uh, federally,
Okay.
um, um, you had, um, and this was odd. I think you had more people not vote than vote last. I know that happened provincially, but it
Yeah,
also happened federally. So again, you think about these people who say, "Well, there's nothing we can do."
that's
Um,
right.
uh, and it went something like this in Glengarry. The person who won the election got 20,000 votes, and 44,000 people stayed at home and didn't vote at all.
Yeah.
So
That's and those statistics are
commonplace.
common and not improving.
Yeah.
Maybe the next time around might be different because uh, the growing antipathy for the Trudeau Liberals is maybe firing a few people up to show up, but certainly that apathy is a big problem.
Yeah. But it really is a false and um, you know um, fictional. There's plenty of people out there to vote for change,
Yes,
um, if they actually want change. Um,
yeah. The
uh,
Americans say get out the vote.
yeah.
They got to knock on doors and remind people that there's going to be an important day coming up soon, and here's a pamphlet or whatever.
So I just got to jump in here because we're at
Run out of time.
close to the last 15 minutes, and we've got 2 questions here before you have to run to your Twitter space here. So from your website, and I'll repeat this again, that if you want to submit a question before the stream, we always give a preview to what the next stream is going to be about. You can submit questions to Randy's website, randyhillier.com/ask a question. So yeah, we have one question from that website, and then also a super chat came in that we'll get to. So from your website, it says, "What influence do Freemasons have on our political system, unions, and other entities in Canada?"
Well, that's an interesting one, because um, um, maybe there's 2 stories I'll share. One if I was really surprised how many Freemasons were elected in the Ontario legislature when I was there.
And police as well.
Yeah. Well, there's 124 members at the time, but I was surprised. Yeah, there had to be at least half a dozen Freemasons in the legislature. But I know that people think that there's always some. We've heard lots of stories about Freemasons. But in my experience, all of them fit that mold that we talked about at the beginning of the stream. Very obedient, very compliant. They were part of a network of people. They had some name recognition in their community. But generally speaking, they were bumbling idiots. What influence do they have? Probably zero. Other than, they go along with the flow like every other trained seal or parrot in the legislature or the parliament. But I will have to tell you this little story. Like, I was asked to be a Freemason once. This fella came and said, Randy, we'd like you to join the lodge. And I said, well, what do Freemasons do? And we chatted and I thought, well, that might be something to do. But then once I heard that you have to call the lodge captain your worshipful master, I just said, like, really? You think I'm going to call anybody your worshipful master? So me and the Freemasons, that's as close as we ever got together. They were, many of them, in the legislature. And I'll have to tell you this one other story, because you always hear about the secret handshake of the Freemasons. And not that I know what the secret handshake is, but I never understood why, after meeting all these Freemasons, they all wore lapel pins showing that they were a member of the Masons. And most of them all wore a ring as well, depicting, a Freemason ring. And I always wondered why people that wear rings and lapel badges would need to have a secret handshake when all they have to do was look at the lapel. But
Yeah.
that's one of life's little mysteries to me about the secret handshakes of the Masons.
All right. And then our super chat here is from Rio, I think I'm saying that right. For $10 says, why do we see provincial leaders become mayors such as Tory, Horwath, and Brown? Thank you very much for your super chat, by the way.
Well, the easy answer to that, Rio, is that once on the public tit, it's a nice, comfortable place to be for most. And like, Tory's a bit of an odd one, because he's comes from a very wealthy family. He is a lawyer. Tory's LLP is one of the largest, a very substantial legal firm in Canada. Obviously, and many people might not realize this, he was a chief of staff to Premier Bill Davis back in the 80s. So he obviously has an interest in politics. But I also think it's been very fortuitous, very profitable for the family business for Tory to be involved in politics as well. I don't think he could cut it as a lawyer, or as a corporate lawyer, and he might as well stay in politics. But I think Horwath and Brown, they've just always been on the public tit, and they can't live any other way. And they and listen, a lot of people might not realize this. To be the mayor of Hamilton or the mayor of Brampton is far, far more profitable than to be a member of the legislature, or even a leader within the legislature. Like the The mayor of Brampton gets paid more than the premier of the province. So and there's no shortage of opportunities for inducements and profitable other undertakings in municipal government as there is in provincial or federal government. Actually, in some ways, it may be even easier to improve your financial well-being in municipal politics in some cases. So I don't know if that's the question, that's the answer you're looking for, Rio, but once on the public teat, not too many people leave it.
All right. Well, I think that's all we have here. So Randy's going to be on a Twitter space after this, starting at 9:30. You can find links to that on his Twitter page. Are you just at Randy Hillier on Twitter?
No, the Twitter space is being hosted on the
there's a link there in the chat.
No More Lockdown account. It's at NML_Canada. They are hosting the Twitter space. It should be operating now, but once I get on it, I'll share it out on from my Twitter account as well.
Sweet.
All right. Did you want me to help close things off, Randy, with a little honk honk?
Oh yeah. That's it. You still have a horn from the old days?
Well, that same friend of mine that helped set up the bucket truck made me a horn last year. So
right on.
He works on a fleet of transports, and so I said, if you ever have an extra one kicking around, send it my way.
Maybe at the end we'll let you get her charged up. We wouldn't want to do it too much. There may if there's anybody in Ottawa, they may fall off their chair if they hear.
I hear they curl up in a fetal position and suck their thumb. Anyway.
Well, let's see. We've got to do what else we have to do. I guess we got to talk about next week. Maybe I'll just make a couple little mentions for shows that we know are upcoming. Next week we're going to be speaking about some of the is it foreign interference that's happening in our country, or is it political collaboration? And then the week after, we have Professor Bruce Pardy from Queen's University joining us for a discussion on the basics of Constitution 101. And then the following week, on November 25th, we have one of my the former premier of Newfoundland, Brian Peckford, will be joining with us for a discussion on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And I think that'll be very timely with what's going on with the discussions in Alberta about their Bill of Rights in Alberta. So
looking forward to that.
More interesting things to come.
Excellent.
All right, I think we're going to play out on a video here, right?
Right on. We'll play the outgo, and we'll see you all again next week.
Thanks, Randy.
Thanks, Randy.
Started to buy large portions of Vancouver real estate in the late 80s. This coincided with the arrival of triads that are very related to tycoons and a flow in of heroin. And that the real estate and the drug money can't be separated in my analysis. My research showed once the game Baccarat and higher bet limits were introduced in 1997, that coincided very well with the arrival of the triads from Macau and Hong Kong. And the money laundering that was accepted by the local police and BC government just rose exponentially from that point.
More than $5 billion in dirty money went into the real estate market last year alone.
At a high level, China is making huge money from fentanyl. It's made in the factories. It's coming west. They could stop it if they wanted to, but they're not. So what's the problem here?
Their mindset is entirely different than ours. We go in free trade negotiations with the objective of facilitating the private sector. Right. They're going in with the objective of facilitating the Chinese state meeting its objectives.
It's a Chinese intelligence tactic to label critics of the Chinese Communist Party as anti-Asian or racist.
One of the things we've seen, unfortunately, over the past years is a rise in anti-Asian racism linked to the pandemic and concerns being risen around people's loyalties. I want to make everyone understand fully. Han Dong is an outstanding member of our team, and suggestions that he is somehow not loyal to Canada should not be entertained.
Our Prime Minister is echoing a Chinese intelligence argument, whether he knows it or not.
When we take a look at all these different subjects in this week's episode, we might want to ask ourselves, is it foreign interference, or is it indeed foreign collaboration with our political parties? Stay tuned.